Hello and welcome to the next European Long-Term Investors Association podcast. We just call ourselves ELTI from here on. My name is Helmut von Glasenapp and I'm Secretary General of the association, and as usual, I'll be your captain and host today. ELTI is a coalition of 31 national promotional banks and institutions, or NPBIs, all over Europe who invest in their countries and even beyond. Nearly 160 billion euro in 2019. One of our hopes with this podcast is to be able to help you better understand the mission and the added value by doing this business. You can look forward to an interesting discussion with interesting partners about interesting topics. How to enable growth and sustainability, resilience, and about our work. We are on Twitter at ELTI Association and LinkedIn, so please you can follow us there as well. In a bit, we'll be introducing our listeners to the world of NPBIs and to what we do, our business models, and what our added value is for the economy and the society. COVID-19 and Brexit dominated the discussions in Europe in 2020. Neither of them seems to be fully resolved. We are looking forward to an efficient vaccination against the virus, and there seems to be some light at the end of the tunnel. However, the economy and notably the sectors related to services are still suffering. The European Commission forecasted that the Irish economy will shrink by 2.3% in 2020, and unemployment is currently rising on the island. Ireland was doing better than the European Union, which will see a negative growth of 7.4%. There are several reasons behind this, but the pandemic and Brexit have significantly contributed to this outcome. The Strategic Banking Corporation of Ireland, or SBCI, was established in 2014 to promote Irish SMEs. I would like to discuss the situation in Ireland with Sean Farrell from SBCI, the Irish National Promotional Institutions. They started a specialised Brexit loan scheme in 2018 already to help the Irish economy to be prepared for Brexit. But in 2020, COVID-19 came along and took centre stage. Sean, SBCI is a young organisation founded after the financial crisis in 2014. You were present to help the Irish economy to deal with the impact of Brexit. Was this your first stress test?
Good afternoon, Helmut, and thank you for having me on the podcast. So, yes, the SBCI is a relatively young organisation, established in 2014, following the last financial crisis. And certainly we have been looking to prepare for Brexit for a number of years, with a specific Brexit loan scheme, which was launched back in 2018. Over the last couple of years, we have been preparing for Brexit, but it's really only been at the last hour that we understand what Brexit might mean for Ireland. And Ireland is uniquely exposed because of the extent of trade that we have with the UK. And in preparing for Brexit, we were in a position to then, once COVID struck early last year, to repurpose some of the loan facilities which we already had in place for Brexit to also be available to companies which were going to be or had already been impacted by COVID-19.
Were the Irish companies aware of your support? How did you cover critical situations in Cork, in Galway, or in Letterkenny, in the western part of your country? Do you have branches all over the island?
So maybe to try and answer that question, I'll try and explain how we operate as Ireland's national promotional bank. We have a wholesale model. We don't have branches. Since we were set up in 2014, we've operated on the basis of providing, in the first instance, liquidity to the marketplace, and more recently through the provision of loan guarantees, which have been with the support of our European partners, and more recently we also act as the operator for the National Credit Guarantee Scheme, which is a ministerial guarantee. So in total, We provided 1.2 billion in liquidity to the Irish market since we were set up, and in partnership with the EIB group, a further 1.25 billion of guaranteed facilities. And now, as I said, we administer the government's COVID-19 credit guarantee scheme. But we do that without having branches or without having a direct lending model. And we operate through a series of on-lending partners, be they both bank and non-bank lenders to the Irish SME market. So that's really our route to market, Helmut. And what's really important then for us is that we can raise awareness of the SBCI proposition. We've done that through traditional media, advertising, but more recently through digital and social media. We have platforms on LinkedIn, Twitter, also on YouTube. We found the use of SME case studies extremely effective to try and tell the story of how SME loan guarantee propositions can support businesses impacted by Brexit in the first instance. We use explainer videos to tell that story. And we've seen a very significant growth in our social media presence over the past 12 months. And I think key to that has been having a scheduled social media calendar, which provides a discipline to how we promote our propositions and engage directly with SMEs. And while we do act as wholesalers, SMEs do also come directly to the SBCI website before they access one of our schemes through an on-lender or through a bank, and we give them eligibility, which allows them to greater choice and drives competition, and that's one of the key priorities from the SBCI's perspective, as something that we want to achieve in the Irish market.
Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. That you don't have any branches, that you don't invest in admin costs of SBCI, but you help the companies. And with digitalization, you are a good example for the economy, for companies, how to do it. I think that's a very good way. But how do you help Irish companies? You can't change with regard to Brexit. You can't change the customs in the UK. And I don't like to speak about the very difficult situation with Northern Ireland. So, what is the benefit of your support to Irish companies and to the Irish economy?
We think we can help companies in a number of different ways. Essentially, we strive to increase the provision of credit to the SME market. And we do that, and when we were formed initially, that was through large-scale liquidity programs through the main banks here in Ireland. More recently, Irish banks haven't needed liquidity at that level, but we have then engaged with smaller and non-bank lenders to the SME market. Therefore, that drives the provision of liquidity to SMEs, and any financial advantage which a non-bank lender gets by accessing lower cost funds through the SBCI must be in turn passed on to the SMEs so they get the benefit of it. Additionally, we drive competition. So because of the fact that we engage with non-bank on lenders as well as with banks, we're supporting competition in the marketplace. So essentially, it's through the provision of credit, driving competition and lowering the cost of credit. Through our guarantee programs, we provide very significant, typically uncapped guarantees to on-lenders, in return for which we ask them to and insist that they provide lower cost lending under more favourable terms, which usually means that SMEs can access credit without the requirements to provide traditional collateralized security. That then gives them the option to be able to go to more than one bank or one provider to be able to access SBCI funding. We do that as part of our contribution to SMEs who want to prepare or deal with either Brexit or COVID or to try and grow their business. But we're part of an overall chain and an overall set of state supports. Other state supports provide grant support to targeted cohorts of businesses. There's advice that's provided through local enterprise offices. So for us to be effective, we need to be part of that chain. And I think for a relatively small organisation like the SBCI, integration into the overall suite of state supports is really important for us to be effective. In the same way, through membership of your own organisation and other networks at a European level, we're able to use this networking and the contacts that we gain to be able to access guarantees, which we have done through the EIB group, be it COSME or Inofin, or more laterally a bespoke guarantee, which we put together with the EIB and the EIF. And as we look forward to InvestEU, we also expect to be able to leverage guarantee capacity directly from the European Commission in due course as an independent implementing partner. So in answer to your question as to how we can help companies deal with Brexit, it is typically through financial supports. But we integrate that financial support with the host of other supports that are available by our state partners.
I understand that there is a multiple array of promotional instruments available to Irish SMEs provided by national and European institutions. SBCI is taking a central role in this respect by offering promotional loan schemes to Irish SMEs. How was Ireland and the Irish economy affected by the COVID-19 pandemic? Are all sectors hit by the pandemic in the same way? How about the service sector and notably the tourism industry? Taking into account the potential repercussions, was your Brexit experience useful to kickstart the promotion of the economy as of March 2020?
So COVID has had a phenomenal impact on the economy overall. As we speak, Ireland is in the middle of a lockdown situation with travel restrictions, essential services, everybody working from home, which, as we know, various countries or all countries across Europe are in varying different stages of restriction. And that has varied over the course of 2020 and early 2021. The Irish economy has, we believe, fared better than what many would have expected it to have done over the course of 2020. Yes, we do have a significant deficit from last year, but income tax held up particularly well. Ireland does have a significant percentage of multinational companies operating here, and that business has withstanded COVID quite well, moving to remote working and adapting accordingly. Agri-food, while it's had to deal with the restrictions and the implications of COVID-19, has also held up well with exports. For sure, hospitality, tourism, that sector has been very significantly impacted, as has retail, in particular high street retail. And while many businesses have looked to diversify, to move online, to digitize, and have done so quite well, there remains a gap between what they would have had in terms of sales under normal trading conditions and what they have had through a hybrid digital marketplace solution. The government has supported companies very well throughout the pandemic. So as well as the loan supports which we in SBCI offer, there has been pandemic unemployment payments and support made available to employees. There has been an increase in unemployment, but were it not for the pandemic unemployment payment, that would have been significantly worse. And generally speaking, SME representative bodies acknowledge the support that many SMEs and citizens in general have received from the government as a result of COVID. It's interesting that during COVID, we've also seen quite an increase, approximately 12 billion of an increase in household savings over the course of 2020 because of the inability of consumers to spend as they might otherwise spend. And as we look towards 2021, and while it's unpredictable as to when restrictions will ease and the economy will be able to open up more generally, as we hope it will, we are hopeful that the savings that have been accumulated will of themselves help to kickstart the economy when consumers start to return to spending in a more conventional way. So it's the uncertainty as to when we will be able to do so is probably the biggest challenge. So as it is across Europe, vaccination is ongoing in Ireland here. There are the estimates for when vaccination will reach critical mass levels and the most vulnerable in the society will be vaccinated, that may allow for a partial reopening of the economy, are moving targets depending on the supply of vaccine. But once the economy does start to move, we are hopeful that there will be pent-up demand for trade that will get the economy going. And that is informing our views as to what we may need to do as Ireland's National Promotional Bank to support that recovery and support SMEs who perhaps are starting to look at the medium to long-term investment requirements as well as dealing with short-term working capital needs.
You have described different instruments for the Brexit, for COVID. Did you invent the wheel all the time for your own and just reflected what is the need and what should we do? Have you been in discussion with other NPBIs, with other providers, what to do? What kind of support did you receive from other institutions in Europe?
So we certainly haven't tried to reinvent the wheel where there have been existing supports and successful examples, or examples of where other NPPIs have applied support successfully. In your opening, you said we're a young institution, and we are. We're in the marketplace since about 6 years, since 2014. During that time, we've learned from the much more established NPBIs across Europe, be they the very large NPBIs, and also the ones that have been formed more recently. And as I said earlier on, membership of ELTI has been critical to that. So we've leveraged the guarantees that have been made available through the European Investment Bank. We've used COSME, we've used INAFIN. More recently, for what has been our most successful scheme, the Future Growth Loan Scheme, which facilitated long-term investment at low interest rates and at high levels of unsecured borrowing. We participated in a risk-sharing agreement with the EIB group, which was bespoke and offered an 80% uncapped guarantee to on-lenders. So we certainly have leveraged off all of our relationships with our peers and also through the European Investment Bank group as well, as we looked to develop the products that we have within the marketplace.
You mentioned several times that SBCI is a young organization, and you had already two very difficult situations to manage with the Brexit and COVID-19. Can you explain what is your business in normal times when you don't have these kind of external challenges? Without COVID, without Brexit, do you have plans for a sustainable island, or what are the ideas for the years to come?
So the SBCI's mission, if I'm to describe it like that, is to deliver effective financial supports to SMEs that address failures in the Irish credit market, while at the same time driving competition and innovation and ensuring the efficient use of the available resources that we can access from Europe. And as I said at the outset, we strive to do that through lower cost loans, through the provision of capital where it would not otherwise be available, and by driving competition. Our strategy has three impact themes. So we reset our strategy last year for 2020 to 2025. The key theme of SMEs first, and to be able to address the requirements of SME lending in the ways that I've described already. Also in the area of innovation, and COVID-19 has taught us that SMEs have innovated very heavily, particularly in digital solutions, be that for working remotely, for trading online, and we think there'll be further requirement for investment in that area into the future, and it's one that we will look to support. And thirdly, in terms of climate action, Ireland has very ambitious targets under the Climate Action Plan. Progress against those targets certainly has been impacted by the challenge that COVID has presented. But as we look to the future, we will look to support Ireland's ambition to meet our carbon reduction targets and the financing that will be necessary to do that. And we're mentioned within Ireland's Climate Action Plan as a deliverer of low-cost finance to enable the meeting of these targets.
So these are interesting plans for the future. And this is not only to tackle what kind of situation, but to look for a more sustainable future. Good luck from my side for all these activities. I think the strategy is quite interesting, and that's very good. You mentioned several times the cooperation at the European level with the European Investment Bank, with the European Investment Fund. What do you expect from the European lawmakers, from the Commission, Parliament, and Council? What should they do?
Priority from our perspective as we look towards recovery from COVID-19 is to be able to access guarantee capacity that can support investment and growth amongst our SMEs. FC had been critical to that under the last MFF. And as we speak, we understand that InvestEU is progressing in terms of its finalisation. So from our perspective, a rapid agreement on the implementation of InvestEU, the availability of guarantee capacity under InvestEU is probably the single biggest thing that would be helpful to us as we plan towards recovery and supporting SMEs and the Irish economy in general through 2021.
Thanks for the presentation of the strategic banking cooperation of Ireland, what you have done in your first 7 years since the inception, and the impact of your activity to the economy and to the Irish society. Good luck for the future. Now, I would like to take you with me on a journey from the far west of the European Union to the southeast, from Ireland to Croatia. Many European citizens may not have been aware that on top of COVID-19, Croatia is still suffering from the destruction left behind following two major earthquakes this past year. In March 2020, the capital Zagreb was hit by an earthquake with serious damages to buildings all over the city, and where many Croatians were left injured. Toward the end of last year, on 29th December, Petrinja, a city 50 kilometers south of Zagreb, was also hit by another earthquake, this time even stronger than the one in March. 7 people were killed, many more were wounded, and again, many buildings were damaged or even destroyed. In this very difficult situation, the Polish NPBI BGK has donated €250,000 to the Croatian NPBI HBOR towards helping the people in the region of Petrinja in order to speed up the reconstruction of buildings in the area. This is a strong signal of European solidarity within the European Union, and it underlined the overall spirit in the work of NPBIs, which we should repeat whenever necessary. Thank you very much, BGK. By this, we are nearly at the end of this podcast edition. Thanks for listening. And if you massively disagree with something we've said, if you have a burning question or just want to say hello, please drop us a message on Twitter or send us an email. As I mentioned in the beginning, we are at ELTI Association on Twitter, and please hit subscribe to this podcast on whichever app you are using. Thank you very much for listening. We'll be back soon again. Take care and bye-bye.
Thank you, Helmut.